Okay. We're live, but I'm gonna
Wait
get
for people to come in.
get the link and send it to the Discord.
Sounds good.
The Discord.
Sounds
All right. Sorry you're late. We just started, Willix. Literally just started the stream. You are not late.
good.
All right. So since we're getting started, Caddy Rob, not Caddy Rob, if you want to introduce yourself again, if you want to plug anything.
Oh, well, no, I don't have anything to plug.
I know, but
Yeah, so I'm not Kadyrov. I'm Russian, live in Russia, study here, working on my doctorate. We're here to go over the Russian perspective on the whole Turkish-Kurdish conflict that broke out in Manbij province. About summarizes it.
okay, sounds good. Well, did you want to talk about your? Did you bring up your degrees at all, or what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying?
my what you guys would consider a BS, my Bachelor of Science is in economics, and I'm working on my doctorate in Russia, Eurasia, Eastern European policy, foreign policy, and economics. So yeah, I know a decent amount about Russian foreign policy or the ideas behind it. So this
Okay.
topic is pretty interesting for me. We actually were talking about it in class on Friday.
Sounds good. So if any of y'all in chat have any questions or anything that you want to say during this stream or discussion, just let me know. I'm pretty sure Caddy Rob is also reading chat, so yeah. Also, hello, Pump Action
Yeah.
Musket. All right. So if you want to just dive into or how should we set this up? Like what does it look like? What is like the average like Russian thinking right now with this whole situation? Like how do they view this?
Well, I mean, the average Russian that's at least keeping up with the situation. Uh, Generally, they're not too fond of Turkey. In general, that's just the general rule of thumb. Russians don't like Turkey, so they generally try to oppose Turkey. But Russia has worked closely with the YPG SDF up in Afrin province. So generally, Russians have a kind of a warmer view of Kurds than, for example, Syrians or other Bashar al-Assad allies, like the Iranians, because Russia has worked with them.
Okay. So is do you have any insight on like what the current Russian administration is doing with this, or like Putin?
Well, so the United Nations Security Council, both America and Russia didn't there was a Germany and France put up a vote to like condemn the attacks, and both in America and Russia opposed condemning the attacks. America did it for the obvious reasons because Trump, I don't want to use the word supported, but said it was all right for Turkey to do it. Russia supported it because Russia enjoys just causing chaos in the NATO sphere, which is exactly what this is doing. It's making internal problems within NATO. But right now, I know the Russian administration is trying to use the situation to try to establish a Kurdish semi-autonomous state in that region, since it's seen as American abandonment. Russia figures that they're more willing to work with Assad at this point in securing their border, and if that's the case, they could work with a deal that would integrate the Kurdish regions into the Syrian government, but keep them semi-autonomous. I know that's been a long-standing plan, and this kind of opens that up to a more realistic approach, since American troops, aren't really helping anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I'm reading chat real quick. The Kurdish general was already quoted threatening to join Russia.
Yeah, a few Kurdish generals and the Kurdish president have already stated. Well, the Kurdish president, I don't know if it's prime minister or president, can't remember which one they have, but already we're talking about talking with Russia. And I know Sergei Lavrov was flying to Iraq today
So
or tomorrow. I can't remember.
so wait, what would that look like if the Kurds were to join Russia or
Well, I mean, there's multiple ways it could go, but generally, it would probably be they would keep a semi-autonomous province. I mean, they'd probably have their own parliament, they'd have their own laws, but they would just fall under the umbrella of the Syrian government because Russia's goal is to just try to get Syria back together in one piece. Because
Mhm.
Russia doesn't really want to be involved in Syria for years. They don't want to. It doesn't want to turn into another Afghanistan, and the
Mhm.
Kremlin's really worried about it turning into another Afghanistan. So they would like to
Okay.
see that outcome. The Kurds preferably would like to see their own state forming, but given the current circumstances, I think they realize that that's not going to be plausible with them no longer having that American support. Well, even though Americans are still within the Kurdish region,
Yeah.
I think their trust has been visibly shaken.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most likely outcome of this situation?
Um, well, it depends on how the Turkish Russian negotiations go in regards to this. But my guess right now would be that Turkey does form its what do they call it? Its barrier. It's a 30-kilometer barrier. That's 19 miles. They say it's for keeping ISIS away, but in reality, it's just to gain more land. If you look up a map of Greater Turkey, the
Yeah.
regions they're taking happen to be roughly the border of Greater Turkey. So
Yeah. So
it's
wait,
it's a nationalist move.
aren't they? I thought that they said that they wanted the more land to be able to take in more of the immigrants
Well, I mean
or
that's like
refugees.
the international excuse,
Yeah.
but how it's turning up, given that they accidentally shelled that camp already that houses a bunch of ISIS prisoners, I really don't see them acting in
Wait,
that
what happened?
way.
What happened?
The SDF has about 10,000 ISIS prisoners,
Okay.
ISIS and their family prisoners, and they've been the ones watching them. And with the breakout of this conflict, they can no longer watch them because all their troops are on the front lines.
Yeah.
And Turkey has said, if we take this region, then we'll watch those prisoners. That was one thing that Trump commented about in a press conference 2 days ago or yesterday. But considering they've already shelled that camp, and I think it was 5 to 10 prisoners escaped, they're not really
Oh.
holding up their end of the bargain.
Mhm. Um.
But even if that region was to hold more refugees, I don't really see that being possible considering it's a war zone and will continue to be at least a low level insurgency of Kurds, even if they do take control of it. So I don't see that realistically happening, nor that being logistically feasible in their situation.
All right. So, what do you think that the average, or I guess all across the spectrum, the citizens of Turkey, what do they, or not Turkey, Russia? What did they see as being the most favorable outcome?
I think the most favorable outcome to most Russians would just be a quicker end to the Syrian civil war. Again, Russians don't want it to turn into a Afghanistan-like situation
Mm-hmm.
or an American version of Iraq. We don't want to be sitting in there for 25 years. And so far, the Kremlin administration has kept it. The Kremlin's current administration has kept it a pretty low-level conflict, mostly Air Force, and I think currently only about 3,000 ground troops deployed, most of them being GRU or SSO troops, so special operations.
Okay.
So that would be probably the most preferable outcome. Would just be a quicker end. So if that's the case, then they would like to see them to be integrate them into Syria under Bashar al-Assad as a semi-autonomous province. But keep in mind that most of the civilians' opinion, most average Russians' opinions on the situation are formed off of watching state-run media, which means their ideology is going to be very similar to that of the Kremlin's. So,
All right.
be that as it may.
Someone in the chat said that I'm guessing after
Saying after
Georgia.
the
Yeah.
has sworn off conventional conflict with other countries, a more covert approach. I wouldn't say if it's a covert approach, considering Russia's just been bombing the shit out of Syria. Not exactly the most covert, but Russia, I think, generally has switched to a more unconventional form of warfare, like we've seen with disinformation, or like we've seen in East Ukraine with backing of pro-Russian separatists. But I don't. I mean, Georgia was kind of a test ground for some of that stuff. Like there was a lot of disinformation campaigns going on then, but Georgia had there were some huge reforms made after the Russo-Georgian War of 2008 because of the clunkiness of the Russian conventional armed forces, mostly the mechanized forces, because they couldn't provide accurate support to infantry. And GLONASS didn't work for the Air Force. So after 2008, there were some major reforms made. And I think when Russia seized Crimea in 2014, they kind of flexed those reforms because you could see Russian troops using Ratnik gear. Ratnik was a program to modernize the Russian armed forces, and then of course new equipment, new vehicles. So I don't see Russia sworn off conventional warfare. Like I think if Russia sees a threat on its border, it will most likely act in conventional-ish manners, like we've seen in East Ukraine, where a lot of the Donetsk and Lugansk separatist units have been formed into essentially small Russian units because they've been getting training and advisor support from Russian instructors.
I forgot. Have I asked you yet what the average citizen of Russia's view is of the Kurds and if it differs?
That was yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, generally they're probably similar to the average American. Like they're generally seen as pretty good.
Okay. All right.
And I imagine most Americans see this as kind of a stab in the back right now to the Kurds.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's two different.
I mean, it depends on what
routes.
side of the aisle you're on.
There's actually no. Most people condemn it. However, the liberals and the conservatives who are. Am I still here? It said I disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so the liberals and conservatives are using this as to further their war hawk kind of rhetoric, or the fact that the U.S. needs to stay in meddling Middle Eastern countries or just countries in abroad. So they're using it to further preach their imperialist ideologies. But
I mean, I think America would have to stay in the north part of Syria for quite some time in order to prevent the Turks from acting like the Turks. I don't see that situation changing anytime soon.
Well,
but granted, I mean 50 troops deployed up in northern Syria isn't exactly war hawkish, in my opinion. I mean, that's essentially a peacekeeper force. And it wasn't, it was a coalition. It was made of French, Canadians, Italians. I can't remember the other special forces units up there, but I have images of a few. But since America removed that one logistical base up there, all those countries also had to stop their peacekeeping operations on the Turkish border.
I would have been fine, honestly, if we pulled out our troops, but the part that really concerns me with when we did so is that we gave Turkey the go-ahead and we had the Kurds dismantle their defenses beforehand. That's
I mean,
that's the main part.
Giving Turkey the go-ahead, but I think Turkey would have seen it as a go-ahead anyway, if that makes sense. If you withdraw all your troops and Turkish intelligence, supports this, then Turkey had been planning this operation for a long time. There had already been a buildup of troops ever since Operation Olive Branch, which was over Afrin. So this operation has been long in the planning. So I think they would have done it regardless on if America pulled out or not. And I think given that the Kurds, they're not an official ally of the United States, but they're a long-term partner who have fought and died alongside U.S. troops. They're seen as an ally.
Yeah.
So I think America at least has some duty to protect them in some sense.
I think we could,
especially
do
if they
that
can't protect
being
themselves.
Over there. I think that we could. I think that we have enough soft power
How would you leverage that soft power against Turkey, though, considering they're a NATO member and you can't enact political consequences against a fellow NATO member?
I think. Well, we don't. I think they would. I think that. I think they would have listened, because I feel like I don't know. I don't know how Turkey is honestly, but I feel like
I don't think
most
they would listen.
people are would listen to the U.S. if I had to hedge my bet, since they're the hegemon.
But keep in mind, Erdogan has based his whole character around Vladimir Putin. Like that's who he looks up to. That's who he
Yeah,
tries to get. They bought Russian missile systems. So I don't think simply a
yeah.
wag of the finger, especially from someone like Trump, would be enough to deter him. It obviously wasn't enough to deter him now. I mean, the U.S. threatened economic sanctions, and that didn't deter them.
Well,
So,
that's the. I mean, I don't know. Trump's been wishy washy. He gave them the go ahead originally. There's a few questions in chat for you.
okay, let me see.
The
Oh
first
boy,
one. The first one is: Does Caddy Hater approve of Russia today?
I'm not a fan of it because it's state-run media. I'm generally not a fan of state-run media. If you want to hear the Russian point of view, then yes, it's good, but I wouldn't take it as gospel.
Okay. Someone said the YPG will be wiped out of northern Syria.
Considering the advance is only supposed to be 30 kilometers, the YPG will not be knocked out of all of northern Syria. Only 19 miles within the northern border. I don't think Turkey will expand past that because then they will get a lot more flack internationally.
Okay,
And
someone
then let's.
said, are there any foreign troops on the Mexican-American or Canadian-American border? Why are there American troops 15 kilometers away?
What? Are there any foreign troops on the Mexican American?
There's border control, if that's...
I,
But there's
I don't
not
get what he's
military
asking. I
troops.
don't get the last end of that. I mean,
So
America doesn't
basically,
allow. Uh,
he's asking why
America
U.S.
doesn't
is...
allow its troops to be used in a domestic presence. That's
Yeah.
against the Constitution in America. So
Well,
no, there aren't
Trump
any.
is
I
starting
mean,
to
Trump
do it
deployed
before.
some, but they can only be used as surveillance, and for they can't actually arrest anyone. That's the thing. So they're kind of useless. They can only be used for surveillance.
Yeah, we have border control. I guess the question that they're trying to ask is why the
Why
U.S. is
America has them in
imperialist.
Syria but not Turkey? For oh boy, he's Turk. He's a Turkish. He's Turk.
How do you know?
Turkey has 3.6 million refugees. Yes, it does have a lot of refugees, but the YPG is the enemy. Okay, but why is the YPG the enemy in your point of view? Because considering they've worked alongside countless nations of the U.S. coalition, keep in mind the U.S. is allied to Turkey in wiping out ISIS when Turkey was buying ISIS oil in northern Syria for the longest of times until they were sanctioned for it to stop, until Russia bombed those oil outputs. And considering a lot of Turkish-backed jihadists right now are back to Al Nusra, then I would be very concerned about who Turkey is supporting. Yeah, and the Turkish-backed FSA will advance 30 kilometers, and I don't think they will expand past the 30 kilometers. I think they would. I think they know that. I think Turkey has them on a tight leash. Yeah, I don't have a problem with them standing behind. The problem is a lot of the Kurds have historically been undermined, and Turkey has fought its wars against the Kurds, and there are Kurdish factions within the PKK who act in terroristic manners, but the Kurds have a long-standing historical claim to regions within Syria, Iraq, and Turkey, and they have been undermined and put down by both chemical weapons from Iraq, chemical weapons from Assad. They've been put down brutally by Assad and Saddam. The Turks brutally put them down. The Turks arguably committed war crimes in their Kurdish regions. So, I mean, I have a bit of a heart for them personally. They've been through a lot, and they're just trying to establish somewhat of their own identity.
Um, Hold on, Pump Action. Also, I don't know if you saw this earlier, but Pump Action asked you, how does Caddy have all these connections with all these mercenaries and
But
soldiers?
oh yeah, so I mean, my mostly because it's given what I study and everything, I kind of look out for these sources because they're useful to have. Um, and there is a big population of mercenaries within Russia just because of if you used to be special forces in the Soviet Union, you're not really trained for anything else. So when you get out of work, you just kind of become a mercenary. Um, But I try to go out of my way and befriend them because they're useful to have, especially in situations like this. Like, hey, you can ask what's going on. And there's a big use of them in Syria.
Okay. So Osman
The Taliban who
Lee
fight
Suleiman.
ISIS and also about the YPG who fight ISIS. Al Qaeda called Hayat Tahrir al Sham. Yeah, Al Qaeda of Syria is called Hayat Tahrir al Sham. Used to be called Al Nusra. It's fighting ISIS. Then we should support Al Qaeda. What? Yeah, the Taliban fights ISIS in Afghanistan. That's true, but it doesn't fight Al Qaeda in Afghanistan. Those are two different factions in Afghanistan. They don't like each other anymore, even though they came from the same roots originally. But granted, considering they're a long-term U.S. ally, and U.S., France, Britain, Canada, Russia have all used the Kurds and have all been, very impressed with the Kurds. I would support them. I mean, generally, if all those countries have positive experiences with them, then I would say, pretty good. When Russia and America agree on who's decent, then you're in a situation where they might actually be pretty decent. It's really only obviously the Iraqis don't like the Kurds, the Iranians don't like the Kurds, and Syrians don't like the Kurds, as long as the Turks don't like the Kurds because they all have territorial claims.
Yeah. So Pump Action Musket said that we should bring in Osman Lee. I don't know if you're against that, Kadyrov. Are you?
I wouldn't be against that, no.
Okay, so Osman Lee, if you have Discord, go ahead and join us, and we will bring you in if you want to talk. I'm sending the Discord link right now. If you'd like to join. Okay, let's see. Cam and Pikachu said self-determination is BS.
BS, yeah. I don't agree with that.
Okay, would you like to
elaborate?
Yeah.
I mean, people have a right to seek what they want to be, whether it's through, usually through democratic means is the way I support it. Mm-hmm. I mean, for example, the situation in Kosovo, or, Kosovo would be one of the biggest ones. I mean, if your people are being brutally put down in a small region, or, any former Yugoslav republic like Bosnia or Croatia, where the former Yugoslav forces were being brutal and inhumane. And of course, they were inhumane on all sides. I'm not denying that. But in this situation, they wanted to seek, their own route because, Srebrenica and stuff like that happened where the Serbs were being, brutal. Then people have a right to seek their own will politically. That's a right in the UN, so it's a international law. So I follow that.
Right,
I don't see that changing anytime soon. When you really find the actual UN law, I will join. Wait until I install the app. Okay.
Okay, Cam and Pikachu, I don't know if you saw their recent comment.
Yeah, I saw it. So. Okay, let me see the UN's proper right to self-determination. Okay, so the UN's right to self-determination states all peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status, and they can freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Of course, that goes for indigenous peoples, minorities recognized by the UN, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Did you know?
And it often is, huh?
Someone said, but you can continue with what you were just saying.
Oh, I was saying it often is used, I think, in poor contrast. For example, when Russia used it in Crimea, because that, broke numerous international laws just to justify the right of self-determination. It wasn't like Ukraine was engaged in butchering the people of Crimea, but, it can be used. I mean, any law can be used to hinder. I guess that's the wrong word, but any law can be used in bad will, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, but I generally agree with if a people's being put down, then they have the right to seek their own will.
Okay. Someone else just commented something.
Kurdish battalions you may see in the current Operation Syria National Army. Yeah, I've seen that battalion. I mean, that happens. I mean, I'm sure there were Turkmen battalions that fought alongside Kurds liberating Raqqa. And I know there were PMU battalions fighting alongside Kurds in northern Iraq. So that doesn't really mean too much to me. I can find anecdotal evidence like that all day long. I don't think that speaks to the behalf of all the Kurds, considering they're the ones being, invaded right now. Over on the left side, under.
All right. I'm trying to. The person apparently joined the Discord. I'm trying to pull them in. Cayman Pikachu said something again. But I view the foundation of self-determination was in bad faith. Like, who was the principle initially applied to? Not and of the Entente.
Not and of the Entente. I mean, the UN was only formed after the Second World War. I mean, if you're thinking of the League of Nations, I mean, I don't think self-determination was a nation, so it could be wrong. Yeah. Okay.
This person
you can link him to the actual room, I think. Yeah.
I don't know how to. So, going to try and just get them to join the call-in queue chat so I can. He's a chicken? I don't know. He's trying. Or they're trying. Cayman Pikachu said one of the 14 points was self-determination. Self-determination was the excuse to carve up the Ottoman, German, and Austria-Hungary.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the Serbs wanted to be free. Montenegrins wanted to be free from the Ottomans. Most of the Balkans wanted to be free from the Ottomans. I don't see anything inherently wrong with that. And of course, there was the same thing with Croatia and Yugoslavia as a whole. The people of those regions weren't exactly very happy after they lost the war, understandably. So, they had the right to choose what happened. And I think by and far, definitely with Yugoslavia, as far as the Balkans and Croatia and such are concerned, I know they very much wanted to leave.
Okay. Okay, this person's trying to join Kin. I'm gonna ask Kin someone. Can you help?
You can just link him to the actual thing, you know that.
I don't know how. Also, shout out to the 8 people watching. We only have 4 likes, so please drop the like button. Try to get us to 8. And join the Discord server.
Can you not invite him to a certain subsect of that?
I don't know.
To certain like the little under the call thing.
Hold on. Let me see.
I don't know how it works. I don't run a server. I don't work here.
How would I?
Here, I can throw up one from my phone.
You
think that'll help?
Invite them?
No, but I can throw up where it is on my phone, so maybe he can find it.
Oh yeah, that works.
But if I send a picture,
I already did. Okay, Wilkes Love.
Which one do you want him in? You want call and queue?
Yeah, bring
the one you want him in.
Call and queue, and then I'll pull them in here. At the same time, the Irish were being repressed by Britain. Like, self-determination has never been a consistently applied philosophy, and never.
It won't ever be consistently applied as long as great powers exist. But the ideal is you can try to get them applied in certain situations where they need it. For example, again, Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia when it was breaking apart once again.
Oh, they're in. They're in. Hold on. They're in.
That's the debate. Oh, you can drag them in
It's
from
fine.
that one?
Yeah, I can drag them in from as long as they're in a voice channel. I can drag them in.
Oh, okay, good. We finally got it.
Oh, they moved to general. Hold on. Come on. Dragged into Colin. Now I can drag. All right. Hello. You are on. I'm just gonna sit back.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
You can hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm that Osmanli guy.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm not Kadyrov.
Nice to meet you. And I was looking on YouTube and I saw that you were live telling about the situation in northern Syria, about the Turkish operation. And, well, let me join in.
All right, cool. Okay, so yeah, we were originally talking about the Russian perspective on the Kurdish situation. So I'm Russian.
Okay.
Are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from Turkey, but I live in the
nice.
Netherlands.
Netherlands? You live in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I've been to Turkey once. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so I guess just a generalization. What is your perspective on it? I guess you can probably backtrack to Operation Olive Branch and Afrin if you want to add some context.
I know both operations, even the Ovedi Shield operation, which was in Al Bab, and also, of course, the Olive Branch operation attacked the YPG in Afrin, and also the current operation.
Okay.
So
cool.
I know all of them very well. And of course, the first operation was around 2.5 years ago against ISIS, preventing to throw away ISIS from the border, all the way from the border to Al Bab, and also cutting off the YPG connecting Afrin with Manbij. That is also an important goal of the first operation of Turkey.
So if I get just as a rough starting point, if I get this correct, you consider the PKK, the YPG, to be an extension of the PKK?
Of course, as I also mentioned in the chat, when the YPG, the PYD took Raqqa from ISIS, they make an announcement with some guy at the background, the poster of that guy. That guy is not involved in Syria or Syrian history. He's not a Syrian at all. He's not the leader of the YPG or PYD. And if you, many will maybe know that he is, of course, Abdullah Öcalan, who was captured 20 years ago in Ethiopia by Turkish Special Forces because he is the leader and founder of the PKK in Iraq, fighting against the Turks.
And just for anyone listening, the PKK is considered a terrorist group by America, Turkey, Russia. It's considered an international terrorist group.
No, by Russia, not.
Is it not considered anymore?
No.
I thought they did. I heard Lavrov talking about it the other day. All right, anyway.
But of course, if you make an announcement about if you capture Raqqa and you make an announcement with his picture on the background, what's the connection with taking Raqqa and a guy who does terrorist attacks in Turkey under the name of Kurds and the PKK? What's the connection there?
Well,
why would someone make an announcement?
Well, I think here's how I view it. A lot of Russians use the picture of Stalin, who's generally not considered such a great guy, given what he did in Ukraine. But a lot of Russians use the picture of Stalin as a symbolization. That's the wrong word. Symbolization, is that the correct word in English? To symbolize. Okay, to symbolize
as a symbol.
As a symbol for a certain ideology or whatnot. So my opinion, my thoughts on that would be it was simply kind of a we show solidarity kind of statement with the PKK, because inherently Kurds will support other Kurds naturally because they're all supporting a Kurdish state. Generally speaking, are all supporting a Kurdish state.
Yes, but about the symbol, for example, Boko Haram is also very linked to Daesh. Boko Haram is, of course, active in Nigeria.
Boko Haram pledged allegiance.
But they're not called Daesh or something. They're called Boko Haram. But we all, of course, know that they are supported by Daesh. But does that make them not a terrorist group because they're just farther away and because they're not named Daesh? Does that not? I think organization because they're somewhere else?
I mean, I get that, but I think given the history of at least of the working operations with the United States, with the SDF, and given how at least approved from at least the American State Department, France, England, Canada, most coalition forces, even German, I think, are included in that, consider them to be a non-terrorist organization in their actions. And just because you wave a sign around of Stalin doesn't mean you support Stalin's atrocities, if that makes sense. Especially in modern Russia, if you go wave around a picture of Stalin, it's not like we support his modern atrocities. It's more of we support, generally it's used in the Great Patriotic War symbolism, like, hey, we beat Hitler kind of thing.
Yes, I know, in your Dembabia, the festivals, etc. I know.
Mm-hmm.
But look,
so I think that's generally the point of view from the U.S. State Department. And given that the Kurds haven't engaged in, direct terrorist activities under U.S. watch in northern Syria.
But look, also, for example, Turkey is already in the region. It has the longest border with Syria, after Iraq, I guess. And they never said, let Turkey use ground troops, etc. Turkey mentioned many times, the President Erdogan many times mentioned, let's create a buffer zone, let's get together an operation to push into Raqqa, even before the YPG, let us do it. They said, no, the YPG is going to do it. So what is the reason that they're not choosing their NATO ally to do the operation, the YPG, which they know for 2-3 years until now, to use them for the operation, even if they know that they are a terrorist organization? Because also that senator guy, I don't know what his name was, 4 or 5 years ago, he asks a general about the link between the PKK and the YPG. He says, you know that the YPG is linked to the PKK, and the PKK is a terrorist organization for almost killing 40,000 civilian soldiers, etc. in the region. And he confirms that link between the PKK and the YPG. And now he states, we have to put on economic sanction on Turkey because they attack our allies. Now, very twisty guys.
I think to go back to the Raqqa point, why, according to Brett McGurk, who was the spokesman for the U.S.-led coalition in Syria, according to the regions, they didn't use Turk. They spent months under Obama. They spent months negotiating with the Turks, but apparently Erdogan and the U.S., the Turkish foreign minister and the defense minister were insistent on using Turkish-backed FSA units, which had some deep connections, old connections. Again, I don't know how credible these connections are, but credible enough to links to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and to al-Nusra, where the U.S. didn't feel comfortable in utilizing forces. Because, of course, logically, Turkey didn't want to send in its own ground troops as the main force, because no one wants to do that. Yeah. Russia doesn't want to do that. America, let's use our proxy forces. And so America was concerned with the legitimacy of the Turkish FSA being linked to Al-Qaeda, formerly being linked to Al-Qaeda.
So then they just knocked the door over to Iraq. Hey, PKK, can you give me some soldiers? We create a new name, the YPG, or the Syrian Democratic Forces. It's basically a name, but it's the same. It's like, of course, it's like calling Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan Al-Qaeda, and it's calling Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Syria. But it's the same.
If you could provide some links to how PKK sent over troops to the YPG, that would be fantastic, because I would love to read over those sources.
Look, if you know the cross border from Jarubia, which is in Syria, to Iraq, of course, the northern part of Iraq is in hands of the Kurdish region, Kurdistan Party region. I don't know what their real name is.
The Kurdish Worker Party of Iraq, I think, is just what they're called.
I don't know. That's the English name of the PKK, but I don't know how that self-registered area is called, with the capital Erbil, etc. But there's money. There is a lot of tunnels, etc. And they can see. Look, of course, Turkey also struck that border post in the first night of the attack, attacking Jarubia, where there was reinforcement coming from northern Iraq. Look, what kind of reinforcement is that then? Is that Iraqi army?
It was definitely those reinforcements were obviously Kurdish reinforcements. I know Iraqi Kurdish forces sent troops to help the Syrian Kurds. I mean, again, Kurds will help Kurds. That's the same idea of principle where Russia helps Russians in Donetsk and Lugansk in East Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, there's a natural sympathy to help your own, if that makes sense. Like Russians consider people in Donetsk and Lugansk part of the Ruski Mir, which means Russian world. And I assume Kurds probably have a very similar thought. And I'm sure, Turks have a very similar thought with, like countries like Azerbaijan, where they consider them, brotherly.
Of course, yeah.
And so I think, from a Kurdish point of view, there can be people who are from the Kurdish regions of Turkey who, obviously don't support, the PKK, but who want to fight the Daesh. And I'm sure, that happened because there was that, I guess nationalism would be the correct word, even though they don't have a nation, but this sense of pride to build around.
Like patriotism under them.
Yeah, but I don't know if patriotism would be the nationalism or patriotism, since they don't have a country. I don't know. I'm not sure of these specifics in English. But yeah, I'm sure there are definitely links and circumstances where there are links between the PKK and YPG, but I'm sure, again, that's mostly on the low end level. Like, again, it's probably the same thing with the FSA and that Turkey uses. Like, I'm sure there were some people who used to belong to Al Qaeda and the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Of course, there will be.
And
I think
I'm sure that
the region in Idlib, there's
the
Idlib
region. Yeah, there's much infighting. Oh God, Idlib's just a mess.
I know.
It's a fantastic mess. But yeah, given that principle, I'm sure the Kurds have the exact same situation where the Kurds aren't really in a position to deny any support that they're getting, if that makes sense. It's not like, oh no, don't give us the soldiers who we desperately need to fight the Daesh. Don't give us those guys. I don't think they're going to just say no because of their previous connections, as the same as with Turkey and as is the same with Bashar al-Assad, using previous fighters from other rebel groups. No one's really in a position in Syria to be like, we can't have this logistical support.
Yeah.
But whether the YPG has the same political connections to the PKK, that one's still up for debate. I haven't seen any super credible sources on it yet. I've only seen very anecdotal from on-the-ground troop sources, which, again, I can find American troops doing Nazi salutes. It doesn't mean that the State Department supports Nazis, if that that makes sense. It's really hard to control all your troops, especially, Turkey can't control all the FSA units because they're rebels. They're, I guess, slightly untrained, not professional soldiers, and the same thing with the Kurds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, these guys have no discipline. And I know, I'm sure, I'm not going to blame Turkey for any war crimes that the FSA engages in, because I'm sure there will be some, as Bashar al-Assad and as the Kurds, have all engaged. And you can't, especially with these hodgepodge armies formed, the leadership doesn't always know what's going on.
No, of course, that's not possible. Of course. So, but what is the Russian point of view? Because it is the title of your live stream. I didn't follow the first part, so...
Okay. Well, Russia generally loves to cause strife within NATO, being Russia. That's its, first point of view. And Russia has recently began to get, closer to Erdogan with the S-400 sale, which I'm not sure how Turks see that sale. Do they see it as a positive or a negative?
No, they see it positive, because, of course, Turkey wanted to buy American Patriots. Obama didn't sell it, and then Russia said, no, you can buy mine.
You can buy you can buy ours.
Yeah. But, no problem. And also now with the F-35, of course, there's now a blockade on Turkey to sell the F-35s, and now Turkey is talking about the Su-57, Su-45, I'm not wrong. Maybe we can, and Russia said, no, we can sell these to you. And Turkey's like, why not?
I think generally, like right now, the general Russian opinion is, since Russia had worked with the Kurds in Russia still has troops in the Afrin region. Is it Afrin still is what it's called, that still has the Kurdish pocket in it?
No, it is a little bit of Tel Rifat.
Yes, Russian military police. Russian military police still patrol that region. And so I think since Russia hasn't had too many problems with them, Russians have a positive outlook on them. And I know Russia used them a little bit in the fighting for Idlib for reconnaissance, for airstrikes. Like the Kurds said, go ahead, use our territory for reconnaissance. So generally the Russian point of view is, the Kurds are okay. They haven't done anything less yet. But on the other hand, Russia loves to cause infighting within NATO. So, and of course, Russia wants, a Syria that's, stable, and that is Syria as whole as it can be. So I think Russia inherently wants Syria to stay together, and the best way to do that is to integrate
Of course,
northern.
look, everyone wants that. Also, the Turkey wants to be like one Syria. There's not like dividing again the Middle East in
I mean,
three,
I think the only
like
people
dividing
who want to
Syria
keep
in
it
three.
divided right now is America, for the most part.
Yeah, if it is an American point of view, they will have their military base and they will stay there for the next 100 years and creating a separate nation, as America always does.
What is it in Al Tanaf where there's a military base? A U.S. military base, Al Tanf, in the near over on the Iraqi border.
I know there's a US based Lafarge plant, near Harabish. I don't know if you mean that.
Yeah, it might be that one.
But other ones, I don't know in
It's over
detail.
like it's essentially surrounded by the Syrian army. Like
Oh,
it's
in
just like a little it's a little bubble.
Kamishli,
Yeah, that's yeah.
in the Kamishli area.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
and
but I think
I,
generally Russia's whole goal is just to cause as much strife within NATO because a not united NATO is easier for Russia to not feel threatened on the European sphere.
of course, look, this is free entertainment for them. You know, America
Yeah,
versus Turkey, YPG versus the Free Syrian Army, etc. I know.
I mean, yeah, that makes the Free Syrian Army weaker for Idlib. So,
Yeah, yeah, also that region also, but.
Well, I don't know the Turkish extent of involvement in Idlib because I hear reports over here of Turkish involvement being pretty heavy in Idlib, but I don't to know
Yeah,
what extent.
no, there are a lot of observation points, like
Yeah, I know about those.
10 to 15 about. So the fighting is quite stopped, not like 3, 4 years ago where day in, day out villages, cities are taken, etc. So it is, for now, it is very quiet. So it is like stable, not maybe
Yeah.
internal in Idlib, but the sides against each other, it is quite stable. Less with rocket shootings and drones and aircraft strikes.
No news is good news.
Of course,
But
because there are a lot of refugees in Idlib now. Like the whole
yeah, Idlib's
opposition of
essentially just
Syria
full.
is
Yeah,
in Idlib now.
because the Assad just kept shipping them off to Idlib whenever they would agree to
Yeah,
capitulation. They were just sending them
underneath
all to
Damascus,
Idlib.
there were little pockets, of course, and also on the Jordanian border, they were all shipped to Idlib.
Yeah,
From Homs,
I have deep concern with how mostly Assad's dealing with Idlib with the barrel bombs. That really concerns me because I feel like the
they will
civilian
follow the
casualties will
same
be
tactic.
high. Oh yeah, bomb the hell out of it, march in.
Yeah, of course, it is. But I also see a military tactic of them. They will bomb one stroke, and they will like knees it in from side. They will attack and then make little pockets where they can turn over. And they will say, "Oh look, or you can fight and you will die, or you will take the green buses and you will go to Italy." And that's the same with that they with all places on the Lebanon front, the Jordanian front, attacking small
Yeah,
pockets, and then hand over, go to Italy. You will be safe there.
yeah.
So I don't
I
know
feel
what
like
will happen.
because the Syrians were in this position where they were low on manpower, low on equipment, where they just were taking those little deals because again, when you're low on all of these materials, you can't really
Yeah,
continue a full scale operation even against these small pockets. So now you
you
have this
can.
heavily armed pocket in Idlib that it's going to take a long time to break.
It will take a lot of time, but I hope it doesn't need to. Maybe they can find some way
Works.
out without fighting. Of course.
Yeah, because it'll be a lot of civilian deaths over there because Assad
Yeah.
and his bombing and indiscriminate artillery
Yeah.
deeply disconcerting.
So, but it is really strange. Look, the Syrian civil war started like 8 years ago, 2011, between just the opposition and Assad, and now we are facing like 1/4 of the region is taken by the YPG in terms of territory. Small leftover side pocket for the opposition, and near the Al Tanf military base near the Iraq-Jordan border, and that's it. That's the Syrian civil
Yeah,
war we are facing today. It's going to total different way. Of course, 4 years ago, ISIS had like 50% of the territory in their hands, out of nowhere.
yeah.
From
Well,
nowhere,
ISIS found out they weren't good at conventional warfare.
yeah, so they can we will do some guerrilla warfare, and it worked out for them.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they still have huge cells in places like Raqqa and whatnot. Like, I'm sure those cells still exist and are plenty strong. That's one thing I'm really concerned about with the Turkish invasion because there are these pockets, well, not pockets, but there are these cells of ISIS left over, and I think they will take advantage of this, weakened SDF state to start doing ISIS things again, if that
Yes,
makes
but
sense.
what, for example, what can we do? There will be also, for example, even if America will pull out of Afghanistan and they made agreements with Taliban, there will also be like small pockets of Taliban who will say, no, we don't accept the agreement and we will fight on.
Mm-hmm.
For example, it's like killing bacteria. You will not always kill 100% of all bacteria. You will kill 99.9% of all bacteria, but that
Mm-hmm.
0.1% will always stay. So it's the same with ISIS.
Well, with the problem with them though is that I feel like they're not as weak as most people think they are, because given how easily Assad and Russia mop them up, it scares me to think that the chances are most of their fighters just went back in to blend into the civilian population, because that's historically what Al Qaeda and ISIS have done.
Of
And so I
course,
feel
it's
like a
part of it.
large swath of their troops are actually still, around, and they're just waiting for a destabilized state. And I feel like depending on what happens in this northern Syria region, this destabilized state could hit Raqqa, which is a major civilian center still. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, no one wants, America to come back in, screeching eagle with, F-16s.
No.
So, it's just these little situations always concern me.
Of course.
Do you think Turkey's going to long term stay in NATO, given all the recent not NATO friendliness Turkey's been getting?
Turkey will stay because Turkey is already in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
If NATO will lose Turkey in the Middle East, look, there are no close nations, for example, maybe Romania, Bulgaria, which are in
Mm-hmm.
the Middle East region. Look, there will be none. For example, also look the American air bases in Adana,
Mm-hmm.
Incirlik. They're also there. The American atom bombs are placed there. There are
Mm-hmm.
some American atomic bombs in Incirlik air base. So I
Mm-hmm.
will not think that America will say, "Oh no, let's throw them out and we will take our atomic bombs away from Turkey and we'll place them in Romania or Bulgaria."
Yeah, well, I know
You know,
one of NATO's big thing is the Bosphorus Straits. Like, Russia can't actually have a proper navy because NATO runs the Bosphorus Straits.
also,
So
yeah.
I know that that's a big thing, but because I know essentially the only reason anyone can be kicked out of NATO is if they no longer have free and democratic elections. I'm not sure how the terms work over in Turkey, but do you think Erdogan will try to stay past his term limit? Because that defeat in, was it Ankara or Istanbul? The local elections that were
I know,
turned
yeah.
out pretty bad.
No, he will stay because, for example, look, with this operation, he again got most of the nation behind us. All because of the
Oh
Nationalist
yeah,
Party, the
yeah, for
NSP,
sure, yeah.
also
I
like
figured.
supporting the coup for entering Syria and wiping out the YPG. So we get that support, and also the two main opposition parties, the JHP, CHP, and the E party, except the HDP, which they call the pro-Kurdish party, but okay.
Yeah.
Beside them, all of the Turkey is supporting Erdogan with this operation. They said, it's our nation, it's our border, it's our safety. Make a buffer zone of 30 kilometers and make us safe. Look, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Islam that is internal. So of course there will be opposition internally, no problem. But if it's about the whole of Turkey, so internationally, they will also always support Turkey. So in this
Mm-hmm.
case, I don't see Erdogan leaving earlier within
No, I
his
mean,
term.
but like, is this how many terms can he technically have left? I don't know how terms work over in
Look, of
Turkey.
course, there will be elections in 2022 or 2023, I guess. Like also presidential and also for the parliament. And then it will, and if he will be chosen, then also again that will be his last term. So
Okay,
after
I see.
2022, he can have another, I don't know if it was 4 or 5 years more, but that it will be the last time.
Okay, interesting.
And
Um,
I also believe that it will be his last time because also getting old. So, but I don't see any problems for him. At the
yeah, no,
moment.
I know he sports pretty. He's like Putin and sports really high approval ratings as a general rule of thumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Syria develops in the next months. I don't think Turkey will advance past the 30 kilometers that they said. I think they'll just stick with that region.
I have no idea. Maybe if something happens, something major, maybe Assad will say no. If Turkey does the north, I will enter from the south. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
No, it can happen.
No, Turkey
But
probably doesn't sport great relations with Iraq right now, because I know Turkish warplanes did bomb Kurdish targets in Iraq, and that probably made Iraq not too happy, given it's Iraq and they're never happy. But
no, but look, the Turkish airstrikes on the PKK camps in northern Iraq. There's an agreement between Iran, Iraq, and Turkey about casing PKKs over the border. So Turkey has the right to go over the border in Iraq and even
hit
Iran.
PKK targets.
But they're not doing in Iran. I never see any airstrikes in Iran, especially PKK. But in Iraq, they have free airspace in the north to strike the PKK.
I feel like Iran's one of those situations where NATO's just like, don't go into Iran, please, dear God, don't give America an excuse.
No, because they know they will be a second Vietnam.
Yeah, and
Look,
no one
I
wants
believe
that.
America can win the war. Look, there's no problem for them, but it will take
I
enormous
agree.
amount of energy and soldier debts, etc., money, and public opinion will turn against them. So yes,
It could
they
be a
can
lot
win.
harder than Iraq. I feel like the Iranians more for that
Of course,
situation.
yeah.
Have you ever been
Yeah.
over? You probably have been to Iran.
What have I?
Have you ever been to Iran?
No. I went never further than Turkey to the south, to the
Fair enough.
east.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've been to Tehran. It's pretty interesting. Nice, good food.
Oh, it's a beautiful nation.
Oh yeah, very. Most nations in that region are pretty beautiful. I enjoyed. I went to Mosul for a few days. Enjoyed that.
So that must be quite a years ago, I guess.
Oh yeah. It was quite a few years ago. I was much younger. No, I don't think I would go right now.
No, look, the city is in a terrible state. Bombed out.
Yeah.
There's no standing brick on each other.
Yeah, I know, and they're still having a lot of demining issues, especially in like Raqqa and Mosul themselves. ISIS left a lot of money behind.
Yeah, so.
Just, strong strategy.
Yeah, and defensive position, but of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's just terrible dealing with the aftermath of that.
Of course.
So, what does Turkey think about the whole Yemen situation?
What I know, that Turkey do not support any coalition, so not the Houthi coalition or the Saudi Arabian coalition. So Turkey is only I will look at the civilians, I will help them, but I will not engage in on one side of the wall. So I will not support Houthis or I will not support the Saudi-led coalition. I will be only for humanitarian aid, and that's it. That's the thing what Turkey is doing at the moment. Because also Saudi Arabia spoke against the Turkish operation in the north, and President Erdogan also stated that look, Saudi Arabia, you have to look at your own border because you're fighting 4 to 5 years war in Yemen. You have made no progress. You're bombing the hell out of Yemen, making thousands of civilians dead left over. And what are you trying in Yemen? If you're going to make progress, look, defeat the Houthis then. They're fighting 5 years and still there's no any progress. They're still flying rockets all the way over Saudi Arabia. I don't know how they are doing. The Houthis,
I mean, one hit that major the oil facility. What was it, Abqaiq, which is pretty impressive in and of itself.
Look, that's at least a range of, let me guess.
It was probably from one of the southern ports that the Houthis own, so it's pretty far, I would imagine.
It will be at least 1,500 kilometers. I'm looking now at the moment 1,500 to. Look, the minimum distance from the Yemen border will be at least 1,000 kilometers. So
even then, considering it accurately struck that oil facility, that's pretty impressive. Definitely, probably Iranian technology, though.
It has to be, or the rebel technology went way before any other nation, evenly.
Or maybe probably not captured Saudi weapons. I don't. Grant, to be fair, the Saudi army has performed very underwhelmingly in Yemen.
No, but I know the problem with the Saudi Arabian army is, look, they have a hell lot of weapons, money, so they will be not technically outdated by someone else in the region at the moment, but they have no experience in war fighting.
Well, I don't even know if it's that. I know back since America got involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's just been this long-standing problem of dealing with these these unprofessional Arab armies. One of the big issues is that, and especially like Saudi culture and Iraqi culture, a lot of times it's very like rich kids who go into the army as kind of like a historical pride thing. They don't really care about fighting. They just in it for like the pictures, so they don't actually like upkeep their military gear and whatnot. Like that was a study done by the U.S. military because they're like, yeah, these troops just suck. Like,
Someone said
I can understand
chat,
it.
someone in chat said Turkey's economy is going to be history.
yeah, I think Turkey's economy is going to get hit pretty bad. Whether I'm sure Turkey will act just like Russia and just absorb it.
Like, of course, eventually they will do so. We're not surprised that America will do any economic sanctions, or even Europe. But eventually, Europe will have no trading partners anymore, because from the south, from the east, they were facing Russia or Turkey to send anything go to the east. So means they will go through Africa if they want more migrations from there, or they will say, look, Russia or Turkey, no problems anymore. Let's make business again. But of course, again, because Trump, you don't know what he will do. Tomorrow he will tweet something in the world, 5% more taxes on the European market, and again the hell will break out. Will break out here in the Netherlands also.
Yeah,
and
he announced a 25% tariff on European agricultural goods. It's a big sad. Americans can't get their Irish whiskey now.
Yeah, but
don't mess with
eventually
them.
America
Don't
will
mess
hit the
with
seven.
Americans and their alcohol. Like same thing with Russians. Like don't mess with us and our alcohol. Like that's war.
Wait, when did Trump raise the tariffs on this?
I'll send it to you. They come into effect on not October, in December 1st. Let me find them. Trump EU tariffs.
Man. Ooh.
Let's see. So it was due to the Airbus case with the World Trade Organization. I don't know if you've ever kept up with that, Lemon.
No. Wait. What was it? What's it called?
The Airbus, the World Trade Organization Airbus situation.
No, I didn't keep up with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you a link that you could read over and go over it sometime.
Yep, sounds good. Hey, we got 10 people watching right now. We only got 5 likes. If we can get 5 more likes, I will be happy. All right. Anyways, back to y'all talking. Also, join the Discord server.
1 second at the moment. I mean, at some point, the EU will have to. It'll be interesting to see how long they agree with those sanctions. I feel like America will probably hold on the sanctions a bit longer. The EU is not really in a great position, even with Russia, for long-term sanction negotiation. Second. I sent that to you, women.
Okay, sounds good. Someone just sent something in the chat. I'm not gonna
Turkey has signed up to International Human Rights Treaty. They're doing to the Kurdish violates them. Again, the problem is they're using largely FSA units, which are just rebels, and you can't really control them. And I'm sure Fishman would, agree with that. You just can't control these groups. It's just impossible. And even, definitely Turkey will face some consequences to that in the UN, but at the end of the day, I don't think much will come of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it is definitely a shame that's what's happened to civilian populations. Just been abused since the start of the Civil War, and it's just going to continue until it ends.
Yeah.
Someone sent something in Discord. It's a tweet. It says Turkey's conflict in Syria took a major turn today. First, alleged atrocities by Turkish-backed Arab militias executing Kurds. U.S. military officials tell me it's true, and they are deeply concerned. It opens the door to both ethnic cleansing of Kurds and return of ISIS/Al Qaeda.
Yeah, I saw that. It was pretty disturbing. Really know what to say besides it's disturbing, and it's really shouldn't happen. I mean, even I don't think it should happen. Even like this would hold true even if you took ISIS prisoners. I don't think you should just shoot them. I don't think that should happen. You know, if you capture someone, then you should try them internationally. You know, if that country has a death sentence, for example, Syria, and if they are found guilty, then yes, then they can die. But I don't agree with just firing executions. I think that's a terrible route.
But what can you do? For example, most of those ISIS fighters were foreigners. For example, from Germany, France, the Netherlands, Europe,
The
etc.
Chechens, yeah, there were a lot of Chechens too, Russian.
And nobody wants to take them back because look, who wants to import
Russia took our
terrorists?
Chechens back. Yeah, no one wants to take these people back. So the Kurds currently have a prison with about 10,000 of these European ISIS fighters. Europe refuses to take them back. They cut off their visas, their citizenships. So that situation, yeah, I don't know how that's supposed to be handled. I would expect countries should take them back. Definitely, if they're your citizens, take them back and try them.
Someone in chat said Germany has banned weapon exports to Turkey. I wonder if this will become a trend.
Netherlands also banned weapon exports to Turkey, and on the U.S. sanction list, is weapon imports to Turkey, which would include full-on F-35 deal would definitely be totally out with that.
It's like 200 million euros of weapon import, so it will not hit Turkey very much. Maybe the Turkish engineers will work a little bit harder and cover it up, I guess so.
Perhaps, but I definitely think some countries just are inherently better at making weapons, and it'll take a long time for the Turkish industry to catch up on.
Yes, but of course, look, the weapons exported to Turkey are these important weapons.
I mean,
for example.
they'll just start using Russia or China. That's what they'll do.
No problem. We will buy enough Russian weapons, so as we are doing currently.
Yeah, so, with the S-400, so that situation all figured out.
Yeah, Russia sees seeing an opportunity to have a NATO ally as a member, also military skill. So Russia will love to sell some weapons to Turkey because a NATO member.
Russia loved the S-400 deal because S-400s have learning algorithms in them. So if NATO ever trains with like F-35s within Turkish airspace that is connected to the S-400, then that algorithm can theoretically learn how F-35s move.
No problems. We don't have F-35, so you can track
but like
if
there's another NATO training within Turkish airspace, I don't whether that happens too much or not is a different story. Certainly, for F-22s and F-16s, which I'm pretty sure definitely Turkey has F-16s. Not sure about F-22s
yes.
probably.
Turkey has a lot of F-16s, yes.
But like the S-400 is probably already built for knocking those down.
Well,
yes, of course. Can knock them easily down.
Seems like we've came to a standstill. Does anyone in chat have anything they want to say for these two to talk about? If not, that's okay.
All right, fantastic.
All right.
Is that everything?
I mean, unless you two have anything else or anyone in chat has anything, I think we're good. Germany hasn't banned exports; they only limited it. I don't know. Is it? Do either of you know?
I'm not sure about that. I read ban, but it could just be like severely limited, except for like small arms, be like rifles and stuff. But Turkey already knows how to make rifles. I'm talking about higher technology stuff like anti-air missile systems or tank systems.
Yeah, I also see like France, Germany also, of course, stop the exports of weapons, but I can't see what kind of weapons they are.
Okay,
I would imagine high technology ones rather than.
Oh, okay. So
wars or whatnot.
MDX is German, so they say that they know. MDX, do you know what's still allowed then? Also, someone said, pump action musket said, how are How do you say it? Erdogan?
Erdogan.
And Putin similar?
I think Erdogan has tried to style himself similar to Putin in a lot of ways as like a strong man, especially within that region. Granted, he kind of needs to be a strong man in that region. And I think given his recent comes to get closer to Russia, have kind of showed that he keeps like a very similar sphere around him. This would be the correct term.
Okay. Cayman Pikachu said, "What's y'all's thoughts on a pan-Arab state?"
I don't think it would work.
What about you?
Just going off the top of my head.
Osman?
Yes.
Do you have any opinions?
Someone asked, what do you think about your opinions on a pan-Arab state?
Or on a pan-Arab state? Which state? Where?
Just all the Arab countries merging into one state.
No, they can never.
I don't think it's possible.
They can never.
It's not in our lifetime.
No, it's because of Arab nationalism. You know, they're all Arabs. The Syrian Arab state, Iraq Arab, Jordanian Arab, Saudi Arabia Arab, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, part of. They're all ethnical Arabs, but no, I will never see. No,
Qatar hates Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Someone said they can give us exclusive information from the YPG before it hits the media.
I don't know how accurate that would be, because YPG is just so hard to get information already.
Someone said that in Berlin, Kurdish citizens raised PKK flags in Berlin.
Yeah. Oh, also in the Netherlands, on Schiphol Airport, and also in The Hague.
I saw YPG flags here today in St. Petersburg.
Even the PKK head man is portrait. And in the Netherlands, there's a law which says that it's not forbidden to use terrorist flags unless the nation they represent is not using terror. So, for example, if there's any kind of separation movement in the Netherlands, which is for separation of the Netherlands, and even they accept them as a terrorist organization, but the terror nation does not represent any kind of violence or killing or murder or something else, it's not forbidden. So the Dutch government is saying that the PKK is not for a state of killing or murdering, so it's not forbidden to use those flags. You can search it up. I also learned
does the PKK have them technically labeled as a terror organization?
Yeah, they have.
And then that's kind of strange for them.
But they are saying that the state the PKK wants is not a terror state, so it's not forbidden to use their flag. It's like saying that ISIS is saying today, we want to have a nice nation and we love everyone, but we're still ISIS, and like everyone in the whole world say, it's forbidden to. It is a terrorist organization, but you can use their flag because their state is not for violence.
Yeah, there is a big Kurdish diaspora. Like, there's a lot of Kurds living here in Russia. I know there's a lot of Kurds in Europe.
Also in Russia?
Yeah, we have a big Kurdish population here in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure when they fled, but I'm pretty sure it was probably during one of the Saddam periods when he started using chemical weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Old Saddam.
Someone said that the PKK did a lot of terror attacks in the 90s and they killed 40,000 people in Turkey.
Turkey fought a war all through 84 or 87 through the 90s, essentially.
Mm.
Okay.
But America argues that the PKK is not related to the YPG. Turkey argues that the YPG is related to the PKK. Of course, each just throw their sources at it, so everyone should definitely look that up on their own to, make their own decisions.
All right. I think that's about it.
All right.
So if either of y'all have anything you want to plug or say, go ahead.
That's it from me. I don't really have anything to plug.
Okay.
Then I think it's also the same for me. I think I will quit your live session.
Okay. All right, well, you have a nice day. Nice meeting you.
Thank you also to let me join the conversation with you.
Course.
Problem.
And I will try to follow you on YouTube.
Thank you.
The Leftist Lemon.
Thank you.
All right, Paka.
All right. Bye.
Talk to you
Okay,
later.
I will see you
Lemon.
guys. Have a nice day.
You too.
Alright. Well, that's it for this stream, y'all. If you liked it, drop a like. If you are new, please subscribe and turn on post notifications. We're getting close to 200-ish, I guess. We're 30 away. That went surprisingly well. Words. Surprisingly well. Yeah, it was pretty good. Let's see what's this? Northeastern Syria. ISIS have claimed responsibility for the attack. Reports of up to 9 killed, but likely to rise. Now ISIS are attacking at the same time. Turkey has also hit prison where ISIS members are held. Why was it? Oof, man. It's a messy situation. Anyways, I will see y'all in the next one. All my social media links are in the description. Peace.